We are live. What's up, wrestling fans? I'm Doug. That's Kevin. This is the Two Bros Wrestling Show, where mostly every Sunday we talk about wrestling. Sometimes we're a little off. What we do here on the show is we knock out the news. Kevin is our newsman. We hit a topic which we call the Kevin. Help me out here. What's our big topic called?
It's the main event.
We hit the main event, then we close it with the big finish. So stick around the next hour and let's talk some wrestling. Kevin, what's going on, brother?
Now, I hate to correct you, Doug, because that was a great intro, but this is
on.
not the Two Bros Wrestling Show.
Fair enough. I made the thumbnail for this week. Yeah.
Tonight, one night only, we are the Two Grinches Wrestling Show for our special Christmas edition. It is, Doug, it's the last show of our year. So sad.
It is the last show of our year, and what a year it's been, Kevin. What a wrestling year it has been.
It has been, and actually that's a great segue because that is our main event topic tonight. It is our Christmas edition. It is our last show. We are, again, the Two Grinches Wrestling Show because last Christmas, Doug, we Triple H was still new with creative. We gave him a wish list for Christmas that we wanted. The year before that, we were even more generous. We gave away gifts to the wrestling world. This year, like you said, what a year it's been. We're giving coal out this year. We're going a little negative for our Christmas show. We are going to call out the worst of professional wrestling in 2023. But Doug, before we do,
news time. Let's do it. What do you got for us, Kevin? What's happened this week in wrestling?
Well, Doug, as you are aware, we were not on the air last week, and as always happens when you and I take a break,
absolutely nothing happens.
Nothing of note happens in the world of pro wrestling. Our last show was our Survivor Series preview, where we correctly called everything that was going to happen, including, I believe, you doubling down when asked that absolutely no way in the world will CM Punk make an appearance.
Absolutely not. Not going to happen. No, sir.
All right. Let's just get right into it. Top story. Obviously, we thought we, had this pretty well covered. Doug, we've done 3 shows like completely centered on this man, but I have a feeling that in 2024 we're going to probably have to do another one based on how this is going. But Punk is in fact back in WWE. In his post Survivor Series press conference, Triple H noted that people change in 10 years' time, and that's true. Even though it has been a decade almost since CM Punk was last in WWE. It's only been like 3 months since the situation that led for him finally being fired, the straw that broke the camel's back after his most recent fight in the AEW with Jack Perry and the investigations, suspensions, and everything that followed that. So we obviously were addressing it last show because it was rumored, and then WWE sort of doused those rumors when they announced that Randy Orton, that when he was returning, that sort of level set fans' expectations in Chicago for thinking that Punk was going to show up, and then lo and behold, Punk shows up. Triple H said in his post show press conference that it came about quickly, and apparently that those remarks really are true. Everything we've learned since the big reveal last week is that Punk didn't sign his deal to the day of Survivor Series, and it is supposedly a multi-year deal. Some question as to if it's full-time or if he's working one of those Roman Reigns kind of schedules. But the other talent were kept in the dark about the signing. Drew McIntyre supposedly left Survivor Series in a huff, but that's may have had nothing to do with Punk and has now since been called no big deal. Obviously, Seth Rollins was very animated, cursing and flipping off Punk, being restrained by Michael Cole.
Exactly, being restrained by Michael Cole. That's totally not a work.
So what we do know for a fact between what is work and what is real is that in addition to Punk being back, which is a fact, is that Tony Khan was asked directly about the situation and answered by saying he was legally unable to address it. Supposedly, there are NDAs all around, as one would expect in a situation such as this. And for the very, very short term, WWE got exactly what they were looking for. The Fed crushed its social media record over the
Oh
Thanksgiving
yeah.
holiday weekend. The return of Punk at Survivor Series garnered more than 71 million views across all of the
Million
sports
boost.
entertainment company's platform. Doug, I figure we'll have way more to say about this, including how it's going in 2024. But for the short term right now, any comment or hot takes?
So I did put out a hot take on our social media about this on our YouTube channel. I spent my last 2 credits of my Hey Gen and sent my digital avatar out to rant a bit about it. But so you guys can check that out. And I'm just gonna save it for that for now, and we'll address this, and I'm sure probably in its own show at some point.
We thought we had said all there was to say, and yet here we are closing out the year talking Punk again, knowing that in 2024 we're probably going to have an entire show about some outrageous thing that happens backstage that causes him to get fired. But for the time being, everyone's really happy. Not everybody, though, is happy in WWE. Let's move on to some other top stories. More WWE layoffs. Friday saw the most recent round of pink slips following the merger and the mass layoffs that happened in September. Once again, the majority of these are on the business and not the talent side. Full number of those affected this time around is not known, but it is said to have primarily affected the financial, sales, partnership, human relations, and production departments. Higher ups that are known to be gone include the senior VP of financial planning, the head of global sales, the chief accounting officer, and the senior VP of streaming technology. One name, though, that stood out and one that sticks out amongst these layoffs that most fans would know is because of her on-camera role, NXT announcer Mackenzie Mitchell, which is a real surprise to me. I thought Mackenzie does a great job. No word as to why she is the only public-facing person to be let go as part of this, but she'd been with NXT since 2019. Prior to that, she'd worked 3 years as a backstage announcer at Impact Wrestling. She's also the real-life wife of current NXT lead play-by-play commentator Vic Joseph. So a bit of a surprise that Mackenzie's gone, but we do wish her the best and whatever she lands on next.
Maybe Tony Khan will scoop her up, and that'll show him. Pick up CM Punk.
You get Mackenzie Mitchell in a trade. You get a better person. I will say that.
Certainly
sure. Maybe this isn't the best segue when talking better people. This next news story is one we need to report, not the greatest one, but the sad and troubled life of WWE Hall of Famer Sunny has taken yet another turn in its downward spiral. This past week, Sunny, real name Timmy Sitch, was sentenced to more than 17 years in prison for the drunk driving crash that killed a 75-year-old man. At the time, Sitch's blood alcohol level was 4 times the legal limit in the state of Florida where this accident occurred. She had pleaded no contest back in August to driving under the influence, manslaughter, and other charges. Sitch had been facing more than 25 years, so it could have been even more of a punishment for her. But 17 years in prison is a good chunk of your life when you're in your 50s. Her history of DUI obviously is well documented, having been arrested multiple times throughout the decades and previously having her license suspended. And in fact, she did not have a Florida state driver's license at the time of the accident, for which she will now spend the next almost 2 decades behind bars.
There's nothing really good to say. Nothing really good to say about this one. All around, this is a tragedy all around. The family of the individual that passed away in this, and just the tragedy that is Sunny. It's just a bad scene all the way around.
Bad scene all the way around. And I feel actually kind of weird now telling this kind of news with a Santa hat on. Let's go on to something that's not about prison and death. Not a good story, though, but MJF, our favorite scumbag, is really banged up, working hurt, not just the normal wrestler working hurt, but dealing with some very significant actual injuries here that he chosen not to address by surgery because he's so hot right now. He does not want to be taken out of the picture for months, which is what it would take to actually resolve his problems surgically. He's currently working with a torn labrum and a dislocated hip. So the Wrestling
Mm.
Observers reported that rather than surgery, MJF is opting for stem cell therapy and rehab to get ready for his title defense against Samoa Joe here at the end of this month at World's End. The Observer also notes that MJF believes he can still work, quote, smoke and mirror matches that will still entertain while not worsening his current injuries.
So that's interesting. That basically what I'm hearing is he has to have like genetic augmentation to get ready for Samoa Joe. That's what I'm hearing.
I mean, Joe is a known killer, so I'm thinking he's going right for that dislocated hip now that this is public knowledge, or the torn labrum. I mean, either one of those. A good
Right? So
coquito clutch or something along those
I guess
lines. Or
Joe has a lot of work ahead of him to keep him healthy or get him healthy before his match. If it's good, I'm really
I
confused.
don't know on the real side of this, fans being aware that this is happening and working smoke and mirror matches. I wonder what this does for the buy rate of the upcoming pay-per-view when people might think that the main event is going to be maybe not all it could be because of these injuries, and smoke and mirrors isn't exactly what you want for your main event.
All right, I can't wait. Maybe this is the perfect time for Adam Cole to go ahead and turn on MJF. He's not really healed either. So they have like a true handicap match.
So for whoever is still left and healthy in AEW to rush in and save this.
Oh my goodness. Huh.
Moving on, we previously reported that former MLW, world champ Alex Hammerstone had been denied his request to be released from his contract. But Hammerstone returned in a surprise at the company's most recent pay-per-view, MLW's Fightland. As part of this angle, Hammerstone joined the World Titan Federation, a kayfabe rival promotion within MLW. I think NWO. They stated as part of this that he had, quote, secured his release, and that's why he was joining. So they're taking the real request and working in. It led many people to think that the whole thing had been a work about him requesting for his release. Not so. While what played out on screen was, in fact, to storyline, there's a kernel of truth to it. Hammerstone took to his socials afterwards with all the questions being asked to say that he and MLW were able to work out the conditions of his release. Those conditions included him returning to finish out the year in MLW as part of the WTF faction. So that might mean early 2024, we might see Alex Hammerstone in AEW or WWE, one would hope. He is an incredible talent, would be a great addition to either roster. Speaking of good additions to either roster, Doug, Will Ospreay obviously made his big AEW signing public at the recent Full Gear pay-per-view. Right. That's right, man. We're about to see, those who are not familiar with his international work are about to really see what kind of talent Will Ospreay is and why you make certain conditions for Will Ospreay that maybe you just don't offer to anybody when you're trying to get them on board.
This is why this is why you say, yes, you can still live where you live now and just commute. And that commute isn't like, driving maybe from like North Carolina down to, Jacksonville. It ain't that kind of drive. It's a hop a plane, jump across the pond kind of commute, but it's Will Ospreay. So Tony Khan's like, yes, stay in England where you are now. You can make the trip. But I really wonder what this says for his, his work rate and when he shows up, though. Just that alone.
Well, he will be going on that plane 2 different directions. It's all going to be good, Doug. It's all going to be thumbs up. Good.
Because, of course, I think you're about to say what else he can do.
His contract is going to allow him to continue to wrestle in Japan whenever he desires. It's a special freedom that is not granted many talent, but Ospreay just isn't any talent. Obviously, he's an incredibly special wrestler, and Tony Khan himself has fostered quite a warm relationship with New Japan. So allowing one of its bigger stars to sign with AEW while still allowing him to work New Japan probably helps keep that forbidden door open, rather than just out and out poach him from someone that you want to work with on occasion.
And it also makes more sense now why they can go ahead and announce Osprey as a AEW talent while he's still under contract with New
Yeah,
Japan. And
it all
it
makes
also
more
has to
sense
make
now.
sense. Absolutely. And just a side note on Osprey, I came across this thing on Twitter or X, whatever it's called now. I think it was a match from this weekend, like an indie match that Osprey does. He hits this dude. The dude flips. Dude lands perfectly for his next move. It's just great. Go seek it out if you can. Osprey in action this weekend at an indie show. You'll see what I'm talking about and see the amazing things that Osprey can do.
And the talent that he can work with in AEW that maybe he hasn't had a chance to work with before. We all have reason to be excited going into 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Final news note here, Doug, before we get to our main event, and maybe not as a positive news for AEW, unlike the Osprey signing, we have some Collision news, a problem unique to it during its brief run. This keeps happening to AEW Collision because when you air on Saturday nights, that means occasionally you're going to have to move, not only move your show so that you can have your own pay-per-view, which obviously, as we reported last time we were on air, had a horrible effect on Collision going head-to-head with SmackDown. But occasionally you have to go head-to-head with your competitors' Saturday pay-per-views, which is what happened over the Thanksgiving weekend when Collision went up against Survivor Series. It was not good. We already covered how Collision going against SmackDown led to the worst ratings in AEW's Collision's brief history. We now have the second lowest ratings in Collision's history and the lowest that has ever been happened when they were in their normal spot on Saturday nights. Collision had an audience against Survivor Series of only 317,000 people. Did only a 0.09 in the 18 to 49-year-old demographic. Worst viewership the show had on a Saturday night. They might have to think twice about continuing Saturday shows, or maybe even the time. I mean, the old 6:05 on TBS would have them off air before the pay-per-views start.
That's true.
That's a possibility.
Yeah, I had not thought about that. Because I like, but also dislike a Saturday night show. There's
It's nostalgic.
It's nostalgic. There's so many cool things like those intros that they do where everybody cuts a promo at the beginning, kind of just sets the table. Love it. That's great. That's so old school, but just make it more old school. I think that's a great idea. Just bump it down to 6:05. Just hit it at 6:05 and go with it.
So David, with that, I think, Doug, with no more news, let's hit the main event.
Let's do it. Let's hit the main event.
Because we are giving out Cole for the worst in wrestling in 2023. David's comment there is a great start because I will just first up say CM Punk.
Yes.
All of it.
All of
CM
it.
Punk, his AEW fights. CM Punk, his AEW exit. CM Punk, his AEW dictatorship that he ran at Collision.
Yes.
And then CM Punk, his WWE rehiring, and those who think somehow that everything is going to be different this time.
It's going to be magical now. Yep.
Soup to nuts 2023 dumpster fire. CM Punk is first on the list to get Cole.
Yeah, Pepsi Phil. Cole for me as well, Kevin.
And the weird thing is that these first two on my worst of wrestling in 2023 list would have been the first two had we done one of these shows in 2022. Because CM Punk obviously had a famously difficult 2022.
Yeah, Doug, I don't know. I'm not sure who's number 2 on your list, but I think it might be the same as mine.
Vince McMahon.
Yes. Yes.
Vince McMahon for coming back. Vince McMahon for forcing out board members in retribution for voting against him as a result of him coming
with the stable retribution. He had nothing to do with that. Well, he probably had a lot to do with that, honestly. But
Vince McMahon for chasing out his own daughter, basically. I mean, and the timing of it, don't tell me that it wasn't related, that her stepping aside had nothing to do with him coming back.
How about Vince McMahon for having nothing to do with creative, yet clearly you can see his hand in creative in certain decisions that were made after he was gone, but still there.
How about the fact that the investigation that ousted him is over and he is back in his seat as head of WWE? And yet we found out in the last financial report that we still found, there's additional hush money that we've uncovered that needs repaid as a result of his sexual harassment payoffs. So, yeah, I'm saying a big no gift for you this year, Vince McMahon. We thought we were rid of you, but I don't think the wrestling world will ever be rid of Vincent Kennedy McMahon.
No, I don't think so, but he definitely has coal from me as well on my list. Yeah. Vince and Punk. At this point I'm saying these two kids belong together. Let them do whatever they're doing with the money and the nonsense. And one of these kids I used to really, really like until it just finally clicked on me what this person's about. God, Punk is just toxic. It's just toxic. You cannot be in that. You cannot have that many problems with that many people, and and not be the cause of the problem. You can't be.
And despite the fact that they maybe deserve each other and are together again, reportedly Vince McMahon had zero to do with bringing CM Punk back. That he was actually intentionally kept out of it, and it was completely Nick Khan and Triple H that brokered this deal. Who knows if Vince would have been in support of it or not. I'm sure if he thought it would help make WWE a buck, he would. But Vince McMahon was a big reason why CM Punk was gone in the first place. And when Triple H is sort of roundabout talking how it's a different company than it was 10 years ago, he probably is loosely at least also referencing the fact that the guy that made you really mad the first time, which was myself and Vince McMahon, I've changed. Vince has not the same power that he used to have. So we will see about all of that.
Yeah, and really at the end of the day, I think it's a good way to just stick it to AEW too, to say, look, we've got Cody, we got Jade, now we got Punk, and we're gonna keep Punk in line.
Hey, but Tony Khan still can get Mackenzie Mitchell out on the market, so pick her up. I love Mackenzie.
True story.
Doug, actually, that is a segue to my next bit of coal here. As far as the worst of wrestling in 2023, I'm going to call out corporate layoffs.
Okay. Yes.
Post-merger, we had wrestlers getting released and then hundreds of office staff. And then, as we just reported in our opening bell, we've now had some more. So I definitely think that would count as some of the worst in wrestling in 2023 is the men and women, both in front of the camera and behind it, that are losing their jobs.
Yes, big lumps of coal for that. So I got one for you. You kind of mentioned it earlier and touched on it with MJF because I had a couple of wrestlers, but I think I should just smush it all into one here. But how about guys who are working hurt and like legitimately hurt? I'm talking like Mox finishing a match with a concussion that he sustained early on in the match and probably knew he could not continue with, but continued with it. Bryan Danielson working with broken arms, broken orbital bones, broken this, broken that. It harkens all the way back to where he's having seizures in between matches and not telling anybody about it. MJF, working through his matches right now with smoke and mirrors. Yeah. Shame on you guys. Every one of you. I get it. You want to protect your spots, but don't shorten your lives to protect your spots and entertain us. We're still going to be around. I'm 50 years old. I've been watching this since I was a kid. We're going to keep watching. We will come back. It's okay. Take the time off to heal so we can continue watching.
That's a great one, and actually plays into one I have on my list, and that is specifically, I was going to also mention the health of Bryan Danielson. Yes. Here you are in what you've announced as your retirement year, and yet seemingly his body is repeatedly telling him over this last year that maybe he's already stuck around a little too long. When he's healthy and in the ring, he can still put on the best match in the business. How many times this year did we call out in our big finish that match of the week was something to do with Bryan Danielson? The question is what's it doing to him long term? What's his body trying to tell him to keeping that kind of schedule? I do think that as much as I love Bryan Danielson and I am a huge Danielson mark, one of my favorites, I do think that his body this year is telling him that the decision he's making to retire is at least from full-time competition, is sound. I don't think he can handle a full-time match schedule, at least not the way he wants to go about it.
I don't think he can either. I really think that he could do like a Roman Reigns type schedule where, when he does show up to wrestle, it's something special. He is, with the Blackpool Combat Club, he has got a perfect position to continue to be in the business, continue to be a mentor to newer talent, and even a producer or even run Collision. He has so much left to give this business and could work on a limited schedule. Just take a breath, man. We get it.
Because
You
I
love
don't
it.
think he can't do the smoke and mirror. I don't think
No,
that's
he
in
can't.
him. I think
No,
as soon as that bell rings, it is
he is all
completely
in.
100. Yeah, 110.
Absolutely, absolutely. My fear is the man is going to die in the ring. He's just and
We don't
giving it
want that.
all. No, we do not want that. We do not want that. So, lump of coal for you and your health. Get better. You need shiny new toys next year.
That's right. I am giving Cole to Stars for canceling heels. Uh, Two great season of heels. They leave us with a cliffhanger for anyone who is not yet through season 2. I will not spoil what that
Thank you.
cliffhanger is.
Thank you.
Oh, that one's for you, Doug. That's my gift to you then, because it's a biggie. Now, I will say, and this is again giving nothing away, because I know others who are watching the show that I have encouraged to watch the show, is that everything that is currently in season 2 that they were setting up as the main themes gets resolved. So if it is the end, you're not left wondering how those things are hanging. What does happen is something that comes up at the end of the very last episode of the season that would lead into a season 3 if there ends up being a season 3. Now, while it is not going to be on Stars, the creators are adamant that they are going to be finding themselves a new home so that they can finish telling their story. That's not unusual for creators to have that kind of positive approach in hopes that they get that phone call. So I hope it is true, because Hills deserve to finish telling its story. It's fantastic for those who have not tuned in.
It is a
Despite
great,
CM Punk, I guess I should put that caveat. The one thing CM Punk did this year that I actually liked.
and here's the thing, man. As a entertainer, as a sports entertainer, at one time, roughly 10 years ago, and back in his history, an excellent wrestler, excellent entertainer, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, until he returns. And even when he returned, it was like, this is awesome. Then it slowly starts to click with me what a not good person he actually is. So let's not take away from his abilities to, act or in ring, but I think Phil's probably pretty fragile at this point, because it seems like he was also plagued with injuries while he was in AEW, which can make a grumpy old man even grumpier, I guess. But I really enjoy Ricky Rat or Ricky the Rat or
Ricky
Rick
Rabies.
Rabies, yes, or we're just calling the Rat.
Ricky the Rat.
Ricky the Rat.
Doug just branded a cheap Mickey Mouse ripoff there, Ricky the Rat.
Ricky the Rat. He's a
We're going to
wrestling
hear from
mouse.
Walt Disney's lawyers now.
It's okay. They're too busy fighting Elon Musk right now. It's fine.
I got one that is very similar to the one I just gave as far as giving Cole to Stars, Doug. If I can also, since we're calling out big corporations, I'm going to give Cole to NBC for the same reason, for canceling Young Rock before Young Rock got to finish telling its story. And that was a fantastic retelling of the true life stories from The Rock's younger life, and not just growing up the son of a professional wrestler, but then his early days in the business and in Memphis and everything else. And we're right now just getting to the spot where he's meeting WWF talent at the time, and your Stone Colds and your Undertakers and the like. So it really was now getting into the meat of how The Rock becomes The Rock. So I hope they get to finish telling their story. And there is indication that even though NBC gave it the axe, there is talk, at least among some of the actors, that are saying that they're hopeful that it will continue elsewhere.
I think it has potential to continue elsewhere, just like Hills does. Because I think there's still a market for these things. But I have to say, I've not been a consistent viewer of Young Rock, but everything I've seen, I've enjoyed so much, and I think that's just the old Mark in me. but it
And
is a great,
and who doesn't love seeing Becky Lynch as Cyndi Lauper?
right?
I mean, which is a thing. If you haven't watched, that happens. So go watch for that reason, if nothing else. What do
Good
you
stuff.
got for us, Doug?
Well, let's see here. My list, like I said, is a lot smaller than yours. That's not
Because
what
I'm
she said.
grouchier.
So I have Nia Jax on here because she's Nia Jax. That's all. She's just getting cold because she's Nia Jax.
Well,
I
that's one less I have to talk about now because Nia Jax, the return that no one wanted, absolutely one of the worst things in 2023's wrestling scene. We had so many good things. We were given so many good things, and yet you give us Nia Jax, the gift we didn't ask for.
right. I mean, you have a perfectly good monster female on that roster already with Piper Niven. Let the girl go. Let her do her thing. You give me Nia Jax instead. Now, all I want to see out of Nia Jax is for her to just obscenely put over Jade Cargill in like a squash match at some point in the future. That's the only reason I even want to believe that somebody brought Nia Jax back, just so they could put over Jade Cargill. But again, you got Piper right there. There's your monster female, not Nia. Come on, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
My next, what are you doing? Man, and I realized that a lot of this coal, I mean, he can probably, heat his giant house with all the coal I'm giving Tony Khan's way. I didn't mean for it to be a total Tony Khan show here, but a lot of these are aimed at Tony. ROH still being behind a paywall. At this point in time, with as much talent as we don't get to see on Collision and Dynamite, I'm absolutely saying that Ring of Honor should have at least been on their YouTube channel instead of behind a paywall while we still wait for announcement of whatever streaming deals that, whether or not the whole move to HBO is going to bring ROH from behind the paywall. But for all of 2023, if you wanted to see, Layla Hirsch and Athena and, the Workhorsemen, or, a majority of Samoa Joe's actual matches and Claudio. And I mean, some of the best work was happening in front of really small audiences because of that paywall.
And here's the thing too. Let me add a little bit more coal to Tony's stocking for you, Kevin, with ROH, because you mentioned Samoa Joe, you mentioned Samoa Joe's TV title, Claudio, Eddie Kingston, ROH champion, you got the ROH tag champions, MJF and Adam Cole. Willer
Yuta, the pure champion.
Willer Yuta, the pure champion. But who, Kevin? Who is the female champion? Who is the women's world champion in ROH? Can you tell me? I mean, I know, and I know too, but when was the last time either one of us saw Athena, an ROH female champion, on an AEW product? All the guys get on there. All the guys have been on there. Yeah. Shame on you, Cody. Shame on you. Coal for you.
Yep, coal for you for that, for sure. The Ring of Honor, I was happy when Tony bought Ring of Honor. No one wanted to see Ring of Honor fold. There's too much of a history there. And honestly, he has too much talent. It makes perfect sense to run a separate brand. You have to have TV in order to run a television product, wrestling product. If it's a streaming product, that's fine too, but you put it behind a paywall. That has traditionally, I mean, ask TNA back when they had weekly pay-per-views that their show was a weekly pay-per-view. Yeah. That was not a sustainable model. This is not a sustainable model. It went longer than I thought by lasting an entire year. Hopefully with the Warner Brothers deal, we see the end of that in 2024, but for right now, definitely a miss this year and amongst the worst in pro wrestling.
Yeah. Come on. What are you doing?
Hey, can I double down on Tony Khan here for a minute, Doug? Kick him while he's down.
Go ahead. Kick him while he's down. I may jump on too. Go right ahead.
So AEW's production team at times this year.
Yes.
I mean, we've had some call outs before about just the shoddy work that had been done, which was uncharacteristic, but cropped up a lot this year. The most recent examples I could just point to this past week. Yeah, Adam Copeland's F-bomb was missed by a good 40 seconds with that bleep. That was on Dynamite. And then the interview on Collision last night with Roderick Strong sounded like it was being conducted in a wind tunnel, like the air conditioning hitting the microphone. What in the heck is that? Do a second take. That wasn't live.
Right.
I don't think it was live, but they just was. They need to tighten it up, and they haven't for some reason. You think that'd be a priority? I don't know if Tony's just running so loose and fast right now that he hasn't taken the time and the initiative to lock that stuff down, but it keeps happening.
Yeah, I agree, man. Absolutely. And I wonder, is it the AEW production, or is this like TNT TBS production? I'm kind of confused how that whole thing runs. Or is it, their production with, hooked up with the networks? Or I'm sure it is, actually, now that I'm talking this out. I'm sure that's all AEW production staff interfacing with. So get some better production guys.
Yeah.
I think we run a tighter show. Our
I was going
audio's
to
better.
say, give us a
Our audio's
call.
better. Yeah, give us a call.
I
Look,
mean,
get one of
yeah,
these, or maybe
yeah.
one of
Give the
these.
two bros a call,
Yeah,
not the
there you
two
go.
Grinches. These are
Right.
these are not the guys you want on your staff, but the guys that are
No.
normally here on Sunday nights, they would
Yes.
do a better job. Doug, I want to get you another one unless you got one for me.
I got one more, and I'm gonna set on it
Okay,
because it really makes
I
no
got a
sense to
lot.
anybody but me. I know you do, and that's okay.
So again, this one falls in Tony's lap, but having Kevin Kelly and Ian Riccaboni on your announcing roster, two of the best announcers, play-by-play guys in the world, and having neither of them as play-by-play announcers on any of your main broadcasts.
I don't
What?
understand that.
What the what?
I do not understand that.
I mean, I'm not saying give Excalibur a seat. Excalibur's great, but if you ask me where AEW really outshines WWE is that WWE has had a hard time finding folks to fit their main announced
Mhm.
positions and stick there. I'm not really crazy about Kevin Patrick's work on Raw. Michael Cole is much better than he used to be. I like him much
Mhm.
better on SmackDown, but they don't have anyone as good as Ian Riccaboni. They have no one as good as Kevin
No.
Kelly or Excalibur, and only one of those three is actually a play-by-play guy. You could have all three be your main play-by-play guys and do more with them. But they take secondary roles. In Ian's case, he's only on behind that paywall. And poor Kevin
Mhm.
Kelly leaves New Japan and it looks like he's in good for Collision and basically gets
Mhm.
bumped down to second chair because Tony Schiavone decides he wants another run.
Right? Uh,
Doug, more coal for Tony, letting
Tony,
Jade Cargill get away.
okay, so I don't understand this one. I think Jade was going to WWE regardless of what Tony did. I'm going to defend Tony here because the more I've thought about this, because it's one of those things that almost made my list. But I I've read a lot of Cargill talking about. I think really Jade plans to use WWE as a springboard. She would not get the attention or not get her end goal staying in AEW. She
What do
will
you think that
wrestle.
end goal is?
And that end goal is Hollywood. That end goal is
You think
totally
she's
Hollywood.
shooting for this to be a platform for
Absolutely.
entertainment industry?
Absolutely. I think, this is, that end goal is Hollywood, a if not a production company where she can mimic like what The Rock has done. I think that's what she wants to do. Go into television, go into movies, go that way. I've jokingly said, let's get her in a storm. Let's get her on the phone with Kevin Feige as soon as we can. Because, well, she's a Storm fan, first of all. So she'll get the character. She could totally nail the character, but I'm fan casting right now. But
She looks like a superhero in real life.
She
So
totally does. I mean, she already looks
no
like someone when she
CGI
keeps her hair
needed.
white. Absolutely not. I mean, there's no body fat on this woman. She's already like a mutant goddess anyway, so she fits that role. But I'm digressing just a bit. I don't think what I mean, he offered her more money. I think, the booking could have been better. Absolutely. You could have put her in the main title picture on the women's side. But at the end of the day, she could not get what she needs from AEW, not now. But if AEW is ever in that position to grant her those opportunities, it's going to be farther down the road when she is aged out of what she could do right now, I think. So
Fair enough.
I gotta defend him just a little bit here.
A little bit of the old Dynamite Doug coming back. I'm all right with that.
I got a text from Tony that, so I need to pick up and defend AEW a little bit.
Well, this is one that I think that is harder to defend, and I don't know what the answer is. But we had a little bit of it in our opening bell when we talked about some of the ratings issues that Collision has ran into. But just in general, AEW's broadcast attendance, whether that is pay-per-view or whether that is the 2 weekly shows. Outside of obvious the international audience, which is starved for wrestling content still, which is why we're seeing WWE move to like 4 or 5 international pay-per-views in 2024. Why Tony Khan is making such a big deal about last summer's Wembley Stadium show, already promoting next Wembley Stadium show, is there was a lot of empty seats this year, and I don't know if the markets are just getting tapped out by AEW hitting the same places over and over, but it definitely takes some excitement out of the building and looks bad on television.
It does definitely look bad on television. There's a meme going around. I'm not sure if you've seen it, where there's Punk at his WWE event. He's like, "Why are all these people on the other side of the hard camera? I don't understand."
Yeah,
I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. It was strange. It definitely seems like some of the heat that was there with the AEW product, it cooled somewhat. Tony got a lot of passes, and I know I'm piling on him on this one, but it was a rocky year, I will say, for AEW, and probably you have to go through that. Every company goes through that. But it was only a matter of time, and I do think that after a really hot start, this was the year of trial and tribulation. A lot of good things like the Wembley Stadium show and Collision being added, but also you see the effects of being in business long enough now that the goodwill is not just given to you; it has to be earned, and some of the cracks are starting to show.
Yeah, I do agree with that. That AEW does have to do something with their attendance. I don't know. Again, I don't know what that is. WWE does not seem to have the same problems. I don't know.
No, they actually had a strong year.
AEW has a great roster, great talent. They have everything they need to succeed. I don't know what that little bit of that missing piece is. I think you could benefit definitely from like paring down all the airtime. Do you need Collision, Rampage, Dynamite? And Collision's at such a bad time. Well, we talked about it earlier. Let's move Collision down to 605. Let's go old school with it.
Let's get Tony help. How about let's just make sure that he has some folks running the shows and not him trying to run everything, because I think that's where the cracks are showing.
Yeah. I mean, let's not forget the man is also, responsible for 2 football teams, or
soccer and American
football as well.
Football.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what you think of this one, Doug. So this year, 2023, you have all elite wrestling without much elite in it. Like until this last month-ish or so of the Don Callis thing with Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho, you had a year where the elite, what was their main storyline this year? I mean, they had some good matches.
What was the main storyline this year?
Exactly. I know that they can't be the center of everything, but it really felt like, outside of having some spot fest matches, and I don't mean that dismissively, when they're in the ring, they bring it. But as far as like being featured players, Kenny wasn't a threat for the world title this year. The Young Bucks weren't in the tag team title picture championship circle there. That it just felt like they're been a little aimless in their storylines.
And I'm gonna pile on, speaking about Kenny and Tony and things with the elite. I'm glad you did it. I enjoyed it tremendously. And having not to pay $50 to see it was great, but he gave away MJF Kenny Omega
I
with a week's
know.
with a week's notice. A
And
week.
a week. And right before we had to quickly pivot to MJF versus Jay White. So Kenny had his match and was forgotten about. That was like instantly. Now we're moving on to the next thing.
Right.
I agree with you. That is an example of the poor booking that the Elite have been, and victims of, as has everyone really. When you do too much of that hot shot booking.
I mean, the Elite have even walked away from BTE now. Now it's BTDO with the Dark Order running it. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I'm a little worried.
Doug, I know I've been piling on AEW. How about I give you a WWE one? And this
What
one's
do
a
you got?
delicate one because
What do you got?
I don't mean this in a way as if he doesn't deserve time off. But I will say that a negative of 2023 is the hottest wrestler on the planet, Roman Reigns, deservedly took some time off, but because of that, the Bloodline storyline, which for the last couple of years has been the best thing in wrestling, in my opinion, really cooled off. And it's because you have a world champion now who, more often than not, is not even on your pay-per-views, much less your television.
But they kind of set this precedent with Lesnar, also a Paul Heyman guy, and I like the idea of the champion being like this big deal when the champion shows up, but the champion needs to show up. Absolutely. The champion needs to be there. There's no real bloodline storyline without the head of the table, our tribal chief.
I mean, it worked for a little while, but this is not Roman Reigns. And for 80% of the year, this is Roman Reigns.
Wait a minute. Roman's calling. Yes. Oh.
Call Roman Reigns. I mean,
right.
It was funny a couple of times, but when you realize that was his involvement in television this year, it definitely meant the cooling off of everything to do with the bloodline. And it's not great to have your champion be a person non gratis.
So true. I can definitely get on board with that.
Now this one's injury related, and this one's on both WWE and that's right. Yeah. I do think that one deserves a yeet.
I'm not sure what yeet means. I thought it meant to throw something, but apparently it doesn't.
It means whatever the Usos want you to say it means, Doug.
I guess so.
It's whatever your tribal chief. Actually, Roman Reigns hates that, so that's maybe why he does it. Mercedes Moné not wrestling on our TV screens in America. Blame it on WWE for the way they treated the women's division and causing her to walk out. Blame it on injury that kept her from actually making any more appearances. But we got Mercedes Moné in the crowd waving at us. Never got her in the ring. Big miss all the way around.
Big miss. I'm not sure who deserves the call for that, but here's something I'm worried about right now, because I've always said I'd never bet against the boss, but boss seems pretty fragile, just like Punk. She seems to be very injury prone, even in her WWE days, which concerns me.
Yeah. I wonder if that, I mean, I know she never felt like she got from Vince McMahon what some of the other of her peers were getting, as when you look at Becky and Charlotte. Do you think, as a businessman, some of that was Vince McMahon going, we can't keep her on the field, so we can't play her in the game?
Absolutely. I at this point, hindsight being what it is, I think so. Do I think she's a horrible person like Punk? Not yet, but who knows? I'm hoping she's not. She seems pretty decent.
We will see what 2024 has in store, because I think she's returning to an American TV screen in 2024. Let's hope so, or otherwise we're going to give Cole for this one again in 2024 if she's not on TV with one of the promotions.
Absolutely.
Doug, WWE's continued relationship and partnership with Saudi Arabia is going to get a call from me every year.
Mm-hmm. Every year. And we can swing back to what a hypocrite our Pepsi Phil is when the first time he does a Saudi show now, talking about that Saudi blood money. And
he's not committed to any Saudi shows yet. CM Punk might be a man of his morals.
Maybe I'm just waiting to see Punk versus Miz at, in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Oh man. Um,
Because he's not there to make friends, Kevin. He's there to make money. So
well, that was maybe one of the more true things that he ever said. But it might have been the only thing of that wasn't tightly scripted.
yeah, you are not an outsider. You are not Scott Hall. Stop it now. Stop it.
Doug, I'm also going to call out your stadium stampedes, your rumbles in the arena, your street fights sponsored by Sega. Enough of these multi-person garbage matches. We're desensitized to them. Give it at least a 2-year break, and then you can maybe do a 10 on 10 annually. But once you are not just doing them on pay-per-view, once they are just like coming up tonight on Dynamite and not even advertised in advance, you're just ruining it, watering it down.
Tonight on Dynamite, Kota Ibushi rides a bicycle around the ring with a wiffle ball bat.
Perfect example. Perfect example. Right before pay-per-view, they give us another one of those multi-person garbage matches. But yeah, I'd say no to those. I'm also giving coal to NXT Europe. NXT Europe. Remember that, Doug?
I do, Kevin. I do.
NXT Europe was coming in 2023, early 2023. That's why we shuttered NXT UK. That's why we moved some of this talent to the Performance Center to get them ready for this revamped, relaunched NXT Europe. I understand there was a little issue with the head of the company being forced out for sexual harassment, returning, a merger.
What?
There was some things going on, TV rights being negotiated,
Sure,
but still,
sure. But
it's the end of the year. We want NXT Europe. How about that NWA mystery deal with the CW that was and then wasn't, and supposedly there's still a network deal that William Patrick Corgan isn't telling us.
oh, William,
Thumbs down.
William, William, William. Yeah, William, you'll get cold for me too. William.
Can we give Cole
I feel like
not just to Tony Khan, Doug? Can we give Cole to Tony Khan's social media accounts?
Oh, okay. Whoever is writing Tony's teases as well.
I mean, you can't stay off of your social media to save your life. You have to comment on every troll's attempts to get you to comment. Tony Khan did himself no favors this year by being overly accessible to the wrestling public.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah.
There's so much I really did not realize, but there's okay.
I mean, we're seeing it here is that David's there in agreement. There's a lack of control right now by Tony Khan, and that is the reason why so many of these are falling on the AEW side of the fence. When I start putting it together, what are some of the worst things that happened this year? There was way more AEW than I expected.
But to David's point, I think if any of us had billionaire daddies that would let us, just start a wrestling company, we are marks just like Tony, and we're going to lean on unfortunately, we're going to lean on a lot of the inmates and not really have a lot of experience dealing with those kind of personalities. And I don't think it's
David's comment too about WCW. That's what happened there.
Exactly. I don't think we're
Inmates
to
running the asylum.
that Dixie Carter level of TNA with AEW, but I think Tony does not necessarily always have the best get the best advice, or he thinks he's running with something that makes perfect sense to him as a mark and as a wrestling brain. It probably doesn't. Just kind of like that Al Snow. What I don't see is that like Al Snow wrestling show on Netflix. I forget what it's called, but you know what I'm talking. Yeah, simple enough, wrestler. But there's the business people who are putting the money out and like doing the promos, and then Al Snow's going, well, this is how it should go wrestling wise. I'm not sure that there's other than maybe Ryan Danielson, maybe the Bucks, maybe Kenny more than the Bucks. But those people aren't there going, this is how you should do this. This is what it needs to be done. This is wrestling. Oh no, let's do it like this. It'll be cool. I think we're seeing a lot more. It'll be cool than no. This is the way we should do this. Even though this is the way we should do this. This will be cool. I think this will be cool. Ends up being more voted on than this is the way we should do this.
I got a few more here, and this one's one I think that they must think is cool or easy for wrestling fans to understand. This isn't an AEW thing only. This is a AEW, WWE across the board wrestling math. Wrestling math. Where that's the attendance numbers announced by AEW and WWE,
Yes.
whether that's triple threat matches, meaning everybody in the triple threat has a 33.3% chance of winning. No,
It's not
this is bad wrestling math. Wrestling math definitely gets cold for me this year.
Yeah, you're talking about the wrestling numbers. That's the last thing I had on mine. I don't want to call Tony Khan out specifically for just wrestling, but I think I'm going to lump it in with your wrestling math here because, the wrestling math and the wordplay involved with some wrestling math. This is the highest number, the biggest selling of all time of paid seats, not
Yeah.
people in it, people who paid. They may not have shown up at the last minute, but they paid to be here. Unlike in North Korea where they were forced to be there for that wrestling event, these people paid to be here. They may not have shown up, but they were paid to be here.
When you start equivocating on your words, you got a problem with your math.
Exactly.
I got three more here, Doug, because
All
I
right,
am
man.
obviously more of a negative person than you. Impact returning to the TNA moniker. You talk about names and playing with words. Why in the world would you go back to total nonstop action? Wink, wink, TNA. Impact Wrestling was fine. People had finally accepted it. Why go back? That's a thumbs down for me.
Man, that would have been a great place for Punk to land. Back to his TNA days. He was there for like a cup of
They were
coffee
interested.
anyway.
They
They
were
just couldn't
interested.
afford him, but that would have been great with the rebranding. That would have been great for them.
Yeah.
Until he got in a fight with like Chris Sabin or somebody.
Booker T, worst announcer in professional wrestling. Why in the world Booker T is still allowed to take up 2 hours of network television as the play-by-play guy to go through his cliches, his laughing at his own jokes. It's just awful. It's almost unlistenable. And NXT saw a big rebound year. They were a real bright spot this year was the work that NXT did to rehab that brand. And they did that in spite of Booker T.
I got nothing.
Last one here.
Nothing.
I know you're going to agree with this one, and I will stop my ranting.
All right. What you got?
Can we say that 3-hour Raws and 4 to 5 hour AEW pay-per-views are ridiculous? The average Major League Baseball game is 2 hours and 42 minutes. The average NFL football game is like around 3 hours, 12 minutes. The world's most popular sport, soccer, takes 90 minutes on average. And yet on a week-to-week basis, we just have a regular TV show that we expect people to sit through for 3 hours. And then AEW does pay-per-views where when you tack on the pre-show, 5 hours. Let's tighten it up at 24.
Yeah, so ridiculous.
When Raw gets a new rights deal, that wherever they land will not be trying to sell 3 hours worth of advertising, and it might force them to tighten it back up to a 2 hours is what a professional wrestling show, 1 to 2 hours is what a professional TV wrestling broadcast should be.
Unless they do it with the first hour commercial free.
Which, just means that tell me you just to say that.
I was gonna do it. I'm glad you did. I'm glad.
Well, it wasn't me.
Thank you, David. Thank you,
Doug. With that, should we try to end going into the holidays with a little spirit and maybe not the negativity? Now we've given out our coal. Let's go to a big finish.
But we still got a botch in the big finish, though. So let's go ahead and get our botches out of the way first, and end on a very positive note. So let me go first here, and let me circle back around. We talked about Brian Danielson a little bit earlier, and I've got to say, there was nothing that necessarily was horrible about that match with Eddie. Eddie Kingston is great. And it just looked so bad in that match with Brian. It just was not a good match from top to bottom. I can't put my finger on what it was. It it just did not look good. It didn't do either one of them any real favors. And Brian with his pirate get up going on with the one eye still bandaged up, even though I don't understand how he's cleared to wrestle with an orbital fracture, but it's okay, but it's not okay. There's just so much about that that bothers me. I want to see this man alive in the future. And, I don't know. Yeah, I'm just calling that one a botch, man.
Calling that
I,
one a botch.
it was just not a pretty
Not what it,
match.
yeah, not
It
what
it
you thought
was
it would be,
it,
considering the two guys involved.
absolutely, absolutely. It just looked bad,
So
and I
my
can't.
botch of the week is someone that we've already given a lot of airtime to, so I won't go too much more into it. But the return of CM Punk
Oh well,
is my botch of the week. It not only makes one of my, obviously, if it's amongst the worst things that happened in 2023, it's got to be my botch of the week. I understand it's the honeymoon phase. This is exactly what Tony Khan got back when he
yep,
brought him in a couple of years ago. Everyone couldn't believe it. It's that, oh my gosh, I can't believe the guy who was so negative on professional wrestling is back. CM Punk, CM Punk. We were all happy to see that return. And then
absolutely.
we saw what CM Punk really is. And I think that, yes, right now, social media accounts, sure, we're all shocked. Like, I can't believe 3 months after what happened, they're going to try him again. We know how this story ends. We've seen it before.
We have seen it before, but yeah, like we were talking earlier. The more I think about it, there's a rich guy with that is a mark who I know he deals with like a lot of powerful personalities, a lot of big personalities with the football teams that he deals with, but they're still not professional wrestlers. I think it's a subculture all to itself, and it's probably difficult to handle, difficult to get a handle on. Eh, But now Punk is in an environment where everybody's like this. People have grown up in this environment. There are people who have been there 30, 40 years. Now, Tony's hired those people, but he's not been around them his entire life. He's not running a company that, was given to him by, or he purchased from his father that, his father got from his father. It, it's a different situation. I think there is a different structure, but I still think that Pepsi Phil is Pepsi Phil.
This was a comment that
Yeah.
David made a bit ago, and it definitely relates to that. I do believe that there will not be the leash in WWE that Punk had in AEW. He was calling the shots on Collision, and it took him literally threatening the life of his boss, apparently, for something to finally be done about him.
Right.
That won't play in the TKO Triple H locker room in WWE, but it
Well,
will be something.
it will be something. And I think, there's probably been scuffles backstage before with Punk and others, but HR is not the kinder, gentler HR anymore. Even thinking about punching a person will get you a 5-day suspension in places now. So it's a different world.
Doug, what
We'll
do you
see.
say? Let's look at the things
Let's
now. Go on to positives. Performer of
pause.
the week.
Performer, man, let me tell you, I'm just going to wrap them all up here since we need to let the affiliates know we're running long anyway. So Swerve, I keep singing this man's praises week after week, and I'm going to do it again tonight because this man is money. This man is talent. This man is everything a champion should be. He's got Prince Nana dancing. He's got it all, man. Jay White, Swerve this week, match of the week for me. Swerve, performer of the week because he is Swerve. This man is just going, going, going. Let's finally strap this rocket on Swerve and send him to the moon. Let's do this, Tony. Come on.
To the moon. Performer of the week for me. I know my botch of the week, obviously, CM Punk. My performer of the week, CM Punk. What else can I say but kudos to you, sir? You managed to absolutely flame out in the most spectacular of fashions in your last employment, where we all had written you off as someone who rightfully was being driven off into the sunset, tail tucked between thine legs. And yet, here you stood with the CM Punk chance at Survivor Series and the CM Punk chance and the main event segment at Raw. What can I say? Whether I agree with it or not, this was the week where everyone was talking CM Punk, devil his due. The blue may come off the rose pretty quick. I think it will. But for the time being, you pulled another magic trick there, another rabbit out of that hat. CM Punk, performer of the week.
He is definitely rocking that Kaiser Soze thing and, making the people think that the devil doesn't exist. but he's not the
Match of the
devil.
week,
in
Doug.
AEW. Yes, match of the week. Again, my match of the week: Swerve and Jay
If I
White.
had to, if I had to cheat and go back 8 days instead of
Okay.
7, I would say
Okay.
that I would pick the women's War Games match at Survivor Series. Way better than the men's match was. Way better.
Way better.
And that Io Sky spot in the trash can from the top of the cage, that is destined to live on repeat whenever they talk War Games. They will show that clip. Io Sky, kudos to you. If I'm being strict and being kept to the last 7 days, Jada Dynamite, Swerve Strickland, 100% in agreement with you. You and I have championed Strickland for the longest time, and it has been a sore spot for us that he was not being featured the way we thought he should. It really seems now that he is on the cusp of greatness. I expect a breakout year in 2024 for Swerve Strickland.
It's my hopes as well for the man.
And with that, Doug, we are saying goodbye to 2023. And that's probably the best segue we could do it, because we are getting ready to, that's right. We all love Swerve. We're getting ready to look at 2024 when we return to you. We will be in 2024, but tonight I know with Doug, we kind of piled on everything we didn't like about wrestling this year. There was a lot to love about wrestling this year.
Lots to love.
So when we do return after our holiday hiatus, it's with one of my favorite shows we do all year. It's always the first show of the year. Can you believe this is the 4th annual Two Bros Wrestling Award Show? 4th?
I did not realize that. Amazing.
It is the 4th. So if you agree with us or disagreed with us about the things we kind of crapped on tonight, come back on January 7th when we come back and let us know who you think Tag Team of the Year, Male Performer of the Year, Female Performer of the Year, Match of the Year, Announcer of the Year. Come back, breakout. We're going to. I mean, hey, it's a big comeback, right? So
which time?
Live on our. We will be on our exactly. We will be on our social channels during this hiatus. We're not going completely away, but this is the last broadcast of 2023. If you watched tonight, thank you. If you watched at any point during the year and supported us, we appreciate it, because you're the reason this show exists.
Nothing but love for you guys.
Oh, look at that. Look at that.
I got fireworks coming up too. Look at this. Oh, wait, that's confetti. Are these fireworks? Oh, there we go.
There's fireworks. Ending the show, ending the 2023 season on a bang. Thank you again. Right. Really do appreciate you guys joining us and supporting us. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you and your families. Doug and I will be on our annual hiatus. We'll be back in a month. So join us January 7th and have a good holidays, folks.
Go catch up on your wrestling, everybody. We'll see you next year.